It's long been rumored, and yesterday the Massachusetts political landscape exploded with word that former Governor Deval acknowledged he's been mulling a run for president.
It's on my radar screen, but, it's a huge decision.
Patrick actually said that a full week ago, but it took until yesterday to reach us here because he said it in an interview with Kansas Public Radio. That's right, Kansas. And lest you question whether he's really running, here's a little more from that interview.
I'm still a kid from the south side of Chicago. I've hunted. My father-in-law and my mother were gun owners. I used to go to the range with the troopers when I was in office.
How good were you?
Pretty good, actually.
Were you?
Yeah. But at the same time, I grew up in a neighborhood where we heard gunfire outside. So I understand the perspective around gun ownership from various viewpoints.
Hadn't heard about his marksmanship before. By the way, we've heard from a lot of viewers asking why we haven't had the former governor on since he left office. He used to be a regular on Boston Public Radio, but despite repeated requests, his team keeps telling us he's not doing interviews. Even when we asked this week, clearly we're not in Kansas anymore. So is he doing it? And if he does, can he win? Joining me are Lauren Dezenski, reporter for Politico and co-host of the Horse Race podcast. Good to see you. Rachael Cobb, chair of the Political Science Department at Suffolk University. Hey, Rachel. And Frank Phillips, State House Bureau Chief for the Boston Globe. Hello, Frank. How are you? Let me start with you. Is it real? Is he serious about this thing?
He's looking at it. And it's funny because in the conversations that I've had with a bunch of people after this radio interview came out, which, like me, or
Patrick people, you mean? Or?
Patrick people,
okay.
Exactly. But it's funny, like you said, this happened a week ago, but it's really only echoing in Massachusetts now. But
Kansas
everyone
is far away.
Listen. As a former resident of a flyover state, I understand. But it takes a little time for information to travel. But really, it's an indication that he's stepping his toe in. But he's not headed to New Hampshire this weekend.
You're nodding your head in agreement, so I assume it's 2-0. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the indication for you? I mean, that gun thing is the indication for me.
Yeah, that's the indication. And that he granted an interview in Kansas and decided to go on that radio show. Why?
Well, he did a New York Times interview. He was with Frank Bruni a few months ago, so he's done some, just not here. Are you going to make it unanimous?
I think he's going to give it a serious look, and this is obviously an indication he's giving it more serious than I thought he was giving it.
Why did you not think he was giving it a serious look?
Maybe because I thought, well, is he really, does he want to go out there? His wife doesn't like all the publicity. He's making good money. He's got a good life. Why go out there? But he is probably the best campaigner I've ever covered. He can stir up a crowd. I've been at conventions where he will get the crowd up on their feet and roaring, and 20 seconds later you can hear a pin drop and they sit down.
He's also a great one-on-one, by the way, campaigner for places like New Hampshire. He's really good person to person.
Oh, he is. When he came to me in early January of '05, I think it was the first reporter to talk to him. He sat down with me at the State House, and I said, And within 2 months I was getting feedback from regional Democratic things. And people would gather around him, and poor Tom Riley, the Democratic, was supposed to be the Democratic front runner, was off in a corner, a few people, and people were really gravitating to him. There's something about him as a campaigner.
I think I was the first reporter he spoke to.
No, it was me. I'm sorry, Jim.
Here is the governor
you
himself
want to see the dates on that?
Talking to Kansas Public Radio
about
what he thinks were his accomplishments when he was the governor of the state 2 terms. Here he is.
I'm proud to say that by the time I left office, 98% of our residents were insured. Our budgets were responsible and on time. We achieved the highest bond rating in the history of the Commonwealth.
So let's start with assets before we get to liabilities. What are the chief assets of the former 2-term governor of Massachusetts there, Lauren?
Look at his sterling reputation among the Obama folks. These are the people who were granting interviews to my colleagues at Politico this past summer who were saying that they were pushing Deval
Valerie
to run.
Jarrett, David Axelrod, those sort of people.
Exactly. And I reached out to David Axelrod yesterday to try and get his response. Haven't heard anything. Who knows? But, he's someone who represents this presence outside of Massachusetts that has a real political viability.
What do you think are other assets, Rachel?
Competence. He had a great team around him, and people were stable in his administration. There was a little bit of a rocky start, but after that it was...
Well, there were some management issues, though, around the medical marijuana rollout at DCF, some of those issues. I mean, he defended himself quite strongly. But does that stuff hang around him? I mean, practically the only criticism, no scandals that I recall. You may remember something otherwise, but it's management issues that are probably the greatest potential liabilities, no?
Absolutely. I mean, he's the greatest campaigner, as we've said. He would have issues about management. Some of the things he did were poorly done, poorly rolled out. It took him a while. As you remember, the first couple of months in office was a disaster. He pulled it around, and any governor, and this is what we had. We always thought Dukakis was and he probably was one of the best governors in the state had, at least in the 20th century. He went out on the campaign trail, and the Republicans took that and turned it around on him, and his gubernatorial record and turned it around on him. You know, all the Willie Horton stuff, the Boston Harbor, the Pledge of Allegiance, things you'd never think of. They'll turn around on him and tear him to shreds.
You know, Lauren, you mentioned Obama's people as an asset. Let's talk about a caller to Boston Public Radio. It was the final time the former governor, Deval Patrick, appeared with us on the radio. Listen to this call.
Deval, you done good, man.
Thank you.
That was the President of the United States calling in to congratulate his buddy. I mean, I have no idea what Barack Obama does if he gets involved in a primary, but it's clear that relationship was not quite as strong in the beginning as a lot of us thought, but I think in the final Obama years, they really developed a huge closeness. That's big, is it not?
Absolutely. It's huge. It's huge because Obama is what what united the Democrats prior to 2016.
You know, we talked about
it was Axelrod and Plouffe were the ones in '06 that gathered around him. That was their team. That was their consultants out of Chicago. I couldn't understand why are they going to Chicago? These unknown guys.
You mean Deval Patrick?
Right.
Deval Patrick, yeah. And a guy named Axelrod, I never heard of him before.
You know, speaking of Axelrod, it's interesting point. We talked on the radio a little bit about this today, and a number of people who actually are supportive of Patrick said America's not ready for another black president, particularly in this polarized atmosphere. And it's Axelrod who I quoted in response. I don't know if you all remember the op-ed he wrote in early 2016, and he said, "I should have seen Trump coming." He says, because after a two-term president, people don't want, these are his words, a replica, they want a remedy. And Trump was the remedy for Obama. Is Deval Patrick the remedy for Trump?
I would make that point. He would be the come-together guy. Calm down. He would say, you know, it would be a completely different tone. Sort of the Obama
drama
on steroids, no drama. But also, you know, let's come together. Not this divisive politics, and he would be very good. It would be a very good theme.
We have a lot of people. Seth Moulton has been out in Iowa. He says he's not running. He's been talked about. Joe Kennedy gave the response to the State of the Union, says he's not interested. Elizabeth Warren seems to be pretty interested. Where does Deval Patrick rank in the hierarchy of the Massachusetts? Where do you have him?
Up at the top. Because he's the executive. He's the one with the executive experience. He hasn't held elected office in a little bit, so we can't hang him on any of the most recent stuff in politics. And he has that hope and positivity that is an antidote to the polarization.
You know, we also looked at he's a business-friendly liberal, and a lot of business guys are scared of liberals, but this seems to me to be a business guy they're not scared of, no?
He'd also be a very strong political position because all he has to do is in Iowa, campaign in Iowa. He's gotten New Hampshire. Massachusetts people always poll songs beat Clinton in New Hampshire. And he goes to South Carolina where the African-American vote dominates the primary.
It's a very good point there.
He would be very strong.
You know, we only have a minute or so left. Speaking of Deval Patrick, anybody remember who the first political heavyweight in Massachusetts to endorse Deval Patrick was?
Jim McGovern and Pet Capuano.
Mike Capuano.
No, I think it was Jim McGovern. Too.
Well, Capuano was...
I think it was Jim McGovern.
So Capuano's in trouble. I can't remember a circumstance, maybe you guys can, where there's been an incumbent liberal congressperson who's been challenged as he is by Ayanna Pressley. Ayanna Pressley, Councilor Pressley, has said so far she's not even trying to distinguish herself on the issues. But interestingly, two of the people I just mentioned, Seth Moulton says he's sitting it out, not endorsing his colleague. Elizabeth Warren, Ed Markey, not supporting, at least as of the moment, their incumbent colleague. What do you make of this really, I think, odd situation, Frank?
It's an odd year, and it's a different year. They're smart. Ed Markey is up for re-election. He's nervous. He's got to look at what's going on, the Me Too movement, the issues that are swirling around in the Democratic primary, the R revolution and people like that. He's got to be careful, and he's tiptoeing around it. Particularly him. I don't know what Seth Moulton's up, but he's always been an independent. And Nikki Tsongas is leaving, so she can do what she wants.
Martha Coakley was sitting in that chair last night and surprised me right before we went on the air and said she is a co-sponsor of a fundraiser for Ayanna Pressley, long-term incumbent herself. I mean, it sounds like a lot of women are saying, time's up. Even if we love what you stand for, it's time for... Is that what's going on here?
A lot of women have decided that they've been staying out for a while, and that it's time to step in, and that they want to support each other in stepping in.
Even if it's against somebody who has a record that is completely consistent with yours.
Yeah, that descriptive representation matters.
You're nodding in agreement.
I mean, this is a Democratic gut check, and at the end of the day, if we really want to split hairs here, it ultimately comes down to Michael Capuano and Ayanna Pressley, and there's not much differences other than between the two of them as people.
You say there's no liberal. There's Marty Meehan, a liberal, beat Chet Atkins, a liberal, in '92, and that was a year of upheaval.
Promising that he'd only serve 2 terms. How many did he serve?
No, 4 terms. We noted that duly.
You did? Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Nice to see you, Lauren.
Thank you.
Great to see you, Rachel.
Nice
I'm not
to see
shaking
you.
his hand because he always does horrible things to me. Nice to see you, Frank.
Good to see you.